You know, most founders spread themselves across 20 priorities and then wonder why nothing moves the needle. The world you're building in rewards focus, not busyness. But most people confuse activity with progress. By the end of this video, you will understand why the most successful people achieve more by doing less. You will learn the focusing question that reveals the single most important action you can take right now, and you will discover why multitasking is a myth, why willpower is finite, and how to stop spreading yourself thin across priorities that don't matter. Welcome to the CEO Brain Library High Signal, briefs for leaders with no time to waste. Because here's the truth, most founders learn the hard way. Extraordinary results come from extraordinary focus. Let's get into it. In 1983, a physicist named Loren Whitehead conducted an experiment. He set up a line of dominoes, each one 50% larger than the previous. The first domino was just 2 inches tall. By the time the chain reaction ended, the 13th domino was as tall as the Leaning Tower of Pisa. The 18th would have reached the Empire State Building. One small domino, a chain reaction, extraordinary results. This is how success works. Not by doing everything, not by tackling the biggest challenge first, but by identifying the one domino that, when pushed, makes everything else easier or unnecessary. This is your CEO brief on the one thing by Keller and Jay Papasan, the definitive playbook for focus, priority, and achieving more by doing less. Most leaders start their day with the wrong question. What's on my to-do list? What's urgent? What do I need to get done today? These questions lead to busyness, not greatness. Keller and Papasan argue there's one question that changes everything. What's the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? Notice what this does. The one thing forces you to choose. Not 10 things, not 5 things. 1 I can do keeps it within your control. Not what others should do, what you can do, such that by doing it points toward leverage. This thing creates ripple effects. Everything else will be easier or unnecessary sets the bar. Not just important, transformative. The evidence. Brian Chesky didn't start Airbnb by building a global platform. He rented air mattresses in his apartment, the one thing that proved demand existed. Howard Schultz didn't build Starbucks by opening thousands of stores. He started by proving that Americans would pay $3 for a cup of coffee, the one thing that validated the model. That's how Starbucks was born. The lesson for you? Stop asking what you need to do today. Start asking what's the one thing that makes everything else easier. Write it down. Do it first. Protect it with your life. Here's a hard truth that most founders refuse to accept. Multitasking is a lie. Your brain cannot focus on 2 things at once. It can switch between tasks rapidly, but every switch costs you. Research shows that when you switch between tasks, you lose up to 40% of your productive capacity. Errors increase. Depth of thinking collapses. The cost is called switching penalty, and most founders pay it every hour of every day. The reality: when you're in a meeting while checking email, you're not in the meeting. You're not reading email. You're doing something worse than both. You're training your brain to be distracted. When you start your day with email instead of your one thing, you're letting others set your priority. Your most important work gets pushed to the margins, done in the cracks between interruptions. The contrast. Extraordinary achievers don't multitask. They do one thing at a time. They protect their focus like a scarce resource, because it is. They block time for deep work. They batch shallow tasks. They say no to meetings that don't serve their priority. The lesson for you? This week, block 2 hours for your one thing. No email, no notifications, no interruptions. Just the one thing that makes everything else easier. Another counterintuitive truth. Willpower is not a personality trait. It's a finite resource. Every decision you make, what to wear, what to eat, which email to answer, what priority to pursue, draws from the same well of willpower. By the end of the day, that well is empty. That's why you make bad decisions at 5 p.m. That's why you order takeout when you plan to cook. That's why you say yes to things you'll regret tomorrow. What this means for founders: your most important work requires willpower, deep strategy, hard conversations, creative breakthroughs. If you waste your willpower on small decisions early in the day, you have nothing left for what matters. The solution? Automate the small things. Create routines that don't require decisions. Wear a uniform or the same few outfits. Eat the same breakfast. Schedule recurring meetings at the same time. Batch decisions into designated windows. The evidence. Steve Jobs wore the same black turtleneck every day. Barack Obama wore the same gray or blue suits. They weren't making fashion statements. They were conserving willpower for the decisions that mattered. The lesson for you? Audit your daily decisions. Which ones drain willpower without contributing to your one thing? Automate them. Routine them. Stop deciding about things that don't matter. Save your willpower for what does. And the one thing isn't just for business. Keller and Papasan argue that extraordinary results require focus across 6 key areas. Personal, your spiritual life, personal growth, identity, family, your relationships, parenting, partnership, business, your company, career, professional impact, financial, your wealth, security, freedom, health, your physical body, energy, longevity, spiritual, your purpose, meaning, connection to something larger. The mistake most founders make? They focus only on business. They let every other area drift. But the areas are connected. If your health collapses, your business suffers. If your family relationships erode, your focus fractures. If you lose your sense of purpose, the work becomes empty. The application. Identify your one thing in each area. Not everything you could do. The one thing that creates momentum. Then recognize that these aren't separate lives. They're one life with integrated priorities. You don't have work time and life time. You have time. How you spend it in one area affects every other. The lesson for you? This week, ask the focusing question for each of the 6 areas. Write down your one thing for business, for health, for family. Then ask, what's the one thing that, when I do it, improves all the others? That's your true priority. All of this leads to one practical framework. Time block your one thing. Here's how it works. First, block your one thing time. Take your calendar. Find 4 hours. The same 4 hours if possible. Block them. Label them. One thing. Defend them like your company depends on it, because it does. This is not the time for email. This is not the time for meetings. This is not the time for quick calls. This is the time for deep, uninterrupted work on the one thing that moves the needle. Second, batch everything else. Batch shallow work into designated windows. Email twice a day, 30 minutes each. Meetings on specific days. Administrative tasks in one block. Don't let the urgent crowd out the important. Most of what feels urgent isn't. Most of what's important doesn't feel urgent until it's too late. Third, protect the blocks. When someone schedules a meeting over your one thing time, say no. When a crisis demands attention, ask, is this crisis more important than the one thing that makes everything else easier? Most crises aren't. The evidence. The most successful founders don't have more time than you. They protect their time differently. They know that if they don't block time for their priority, no one else will. The lesson for you? Open your calendar right now. Find 4 hours this week. Block them. Label them. Protect them. If you can't find 4 hours, find 2. Start somewhere. The discipline compounds. 3 things you can do this week. First, ask the focusing question. Write it down. Put it somewhere you'll see it every day. What's the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? Then answer it. Not for the year. For this quarter. For this month. For this week. For today. The answer will change. The discipline of asking doesn't. Second, audit your calendar. Open your calendar for the past week. Count how many hours you spent on your one thing. If the number is less than 5, you have your answer. You're not prioritizing focus. You're prioritizing busyness. This week, block time for your one thing before you schedule anything else. Third, kill one distraction. Identify one thing that fragments your focus. Slack notifications. Email open all day. A recurring meeting that doesn't serve your priority. Eliminate it this week. Just one. See what happens to your focus. Let's lock this in. 1. The focusing question changes everything. What's the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? 2. Multitasking is a lie. Every task switch costs time, accuracy, and depth. Protect your focus like the scarce resource it is. 3. Willpower is finite. Automate small decisions. Save your willpower for what matters. 4. Focus across 6 areas. Business matters. So do health, family, and purpose. They're not separate. They're integrated. 5. Time block your one thing. 4 hours. Protected. Non-negotiable. Everything else fits around it. Brief complete. Now go find your domino. Extraordinary results don't come from doing more. They come from doing less, but doing the right thing with relentless focus. One domino. One question. One thing. That's how you build something that outlasts the noise. Now, out of all of the lessons in this brief, which one will you implement first? Let us know in the comments. And as a reward for those of you watching until the very end, here's your well-deserved bonus. Your one thing changes. The discipline of asking doesn't. Most people search for the perfect answer and never start. The secret is to start with a good answer, then refine as you go. Action beats perfection every time. This is the CEO Brain Library High Signal Briefs for leaders with no time to waste. If this landed, subscribe. Next episode, The Lean Startup by Eric Rice's Build, Measure, Learn Loops. Minimum viable products, and how to stop wasting years building what nobody wants. Until next time, focus on the one domino that moves everything else.